Butch Cassidy, seated at the far right, poses with his gang, the Wild Bunch, around 1900. The group was notorious for robbing banks, trains, and stagecoaches, carefully planning their escapes to elude law enforcement. Famous members included Sundance Kid and Kid Curry. While they were one of the most wanted gangs in the West, they were also known for rarely resorting to violence during their crimes. The interior of the railway car captured after the Wilcox train robbery in 1899 reveals the chaos left by the thieves. The robbery, carried out by Butch Cassidy's gang, was one of the most daring crimes of the era. The group used dynamite to blow open the safe, scattering cash and debris across the floor. The heist showcased the gang's ability to plan swift attacks, defying the law and solidifying their reputation as the most wanted outlaws in the country. In this photograph, Oglala Lakota Chief Irontail stands beside Black Diamond, an American bison. Irontail was known for his performances in Buffalo Bill's show, promoting indigenous culture during a period of great change for the tribes of the Great Plains. Black Diamond, a famous bison from the New York Zoo, served as the model for the Buffalo nickel, a coin released in 1913. Red Blanket, a Cheyenne warrior, is featured in this photo taken around 1890 during a period of significant resistance by his people against American expansion. The Cheyenne faced intense battles defending their land and traditions. Warriors like Red Blanket were highly respected for their combat skills and leadership during a time when their culture was under severe threat of erasure. This is the last photo of Buffalo Bill Cody, taken in 1917. Although aged, he still retains the imposing posture that defined him. Retired from the spotlight, Cody spent his final months reflecting on a life filled with Western adventures. Beyond his roles as hunter and scout, he engaged in social causes, such as advocating for indigenous rights. Even in his last days, Buffalo Bill remained one of the most admired figures of his era. Roundup wagons accompanied cowboys on long cattle drives that could last weeks and cover hundreds of miles. These wagons carried essential supplies like flour, coffee, and dried meat, along with cooking utensils. Equipped with a water barrel for cooking and drinking, they were also known as camp wagons, functioning as mobile kitchens that ensured meals during the journeys. In this early 1920s image, Annie Oakley, at 60 years old, demonstrates her legendary accuracy by shooting an apple balanced on her dog's head. Famous for her performances in Buffalo Bill's show, she also trained women in firearm defense during World War I. Despite her age, Annie continued performing feats that defied limits and captivated audiences, preserving her legacy as one of the most iconic figures of her time. Calamity Jane and Cowboy Teddy Blue Abbott are seen in a saloon exchanging hats and drinking together. This scene took place in late 1887 in Gilt Edge, Montana. Jane, famous for her skills as a sharpshooter and explorer, also led a life full of controversial stories. During winters, she stayed in town, where her unique personality and unconventional behaviors always drew attention. Between legends and scandals, she divided opinions wherever she went. Around 1869, Buffalo soldiers escort a Concord stagecoach along dangerous routes in the Wild West. Formed by African Americans after the Civil War, these soldiers protected settlers, stagecoaches, and telegraph lines from attacks. The sturdy Concord stagecoaches carried passengers, mail, and goods, often targeted by ambushes. Facing threats and prejudice, the Buffalo soldiers became known for their bravery during westward expansion. In 1881, when this photograph was taken, Ike Clanton was already at the center of growing tensions in Tombstone, Arizona. Involved in disputes with the Earp brothers and their allies, Clanton was part of a group known for clashes with the law. These rivalries, fueled by political and territorial issues, culminated in the famous gunfight at the OK Corral, one of the Wild West's most iconic episodes. Samantha Fallon poses in Tombstone, Arizona in 1879, holding a rifle and wearing a gun belt. She owned the San Jose House Hotel and a millinery shop, embodying independence in a town where business and firearms went hand in hand. In Tombstone, shaped by the silver boom and the infamous gunfight at the OK Corral, Fallon stood out as a businesswoman who thrived in a male-dominated environment. Billy the Kid appears in this 1877 image, wearing a top hat alongside the Regulators, a group formed by Fred Waite, Henry Brown, and Dick Brewer in New Mexico. The Regulators were involved in the Lincoln County War, a bloody conflict tied to commercial and power disputes. Known for their quick actions and precision with firearms, the group etched their name in the history of the Wild West. In Tombstone, Arizona, around 1880, a restaurant and another establishment appear with men and women gathered out front. During this time, Tombstone was thriving during the Silver Rush, attracting miners, merchants, and adventurers. The town was renowned for its rapidly growing economy and lively environment, which would later become the backdrop for the famous gunfight at the OK Corral. The blacksmith shop at the Silver King Mine in Arizona in 1876 was vital for maintaining miners' tools. Tools like pickaxes and shovels were repaired there, ensuring continuous silver extraction. The Silver King Mine, one of the most productive in the region, attracted many workers and spurred the growth of nearby settlements, which depended on the mine's success. Around 1907, the Arizona Club was one of the few permanent buildings in Las Vegas. At the time, nearly everything was built from wood or canvas, as the city was still in its infancy. Located on Fremont Street, the club served as a saloon and gambling house, popular among miners, cowboys, and travelers. It marked the beginning of Las Vegas transforming from a mere stopover into a real town. In 1874, General George A. Custer led an expedition into the Black Hills, Dakota Territory, with about 1,000 soldiers, 110 wagons, and more than 2,000 animals. The mission aimed to find gold and a site for a fort. The gold discovery drew thousands of miners, violating the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty that granted the area to the Sioux. This escalated conflicts, culminating in bloody battles during the Black Hills War. The camp at Hidden Wood Creek, South Dakota, in 1874 served as the base for Custer's expedition to the Black Hills. This expedition was marked by the discovery of gold in the area, sparking a gold rush despite the territory being sacred to the Lakota. The arrival of settlers and the invasion of ancestral lands led to intense conflicts between the natives and the U.S. Army, resulting in years of violence and resistance. In this 1898 photo in Skagway, Alaska, Jeff "Soapy" Smith is surrounded by men in a saloon. Leader of the notorious Soap Gang, Soapy controlled the town through schemes of fraud and extortion. His charisma and intelligence made him one of the most infamous con men of the late 19th century. Among his most famous scams was selling soap bars falsely advertised as containing cash prizes, deceiving locals and travelers alike. He died that same year in a shootout. Joe Liffers, seen in this photo around 1900, was a lawman known for tracking outlaws like Butch Cassidy and Tom Horn. He became known for his relentless pursuit of criminals, even in the most remote areas. Leffers played a key role in capturing Tom Horn, using a controversial confession to secure his conviction. While less famous than other Western figures, he was respected for his unwavering dedication to upholding the law. On Dodge City's Front Street around 1880, a sign stands out, "Carrying firearms is strictly prohibited." Despite being famous for brawls and duels, the city attempted to control violence with rules like this. Dodge City was a bustling hub of the West, attracting cowboys and merchants who brought excitement. The sign reflects efforts to maintain order in a place known for its wild reputation. The Texas Rangers appear in this rare photo from 1868 with James Thomas Byrd and John J. Haynes. At the time, the Rangers faced outlaws, protected borders, and dealt with conflicts with indigenous tribes. They operated in dangerous areas, often without support, and also fought crime along the Mexican border. Their work made them symbols of Texas history and law enforcement in the West. The original photograph of the Dodge City Peace Commission, taken in June 1883, shows some of the Wild West's most well-known figures, including Wyatt Earp and Bat Masterson. Formed to address conflicts in Dodge City, Kansas, the commission dealt with tensions involving local merchants and authorities. The group symbolized efforts to impose order in one of the frontier's busiest and most tumultuous towns, known for its saloons, duels, and disputes. Herman Lawmen appears in this photo, taken around 1910, dressed in indigenous clothing reflecting the strong influence of his life with the Apaches and Comanches. He was taken by the Apaches in 1870 as a child and lived 9 years among indigenous peoples, adopting their culture and becoming a warrior. Upon reuniting with his family, he struggled to adapt to white society after years immersed in a completely different way of life. Flagstaff, Arizona, was a small community in 1883 known as Old Flagstaff. The name originated from a flagpole erected by settlers to hoist a flag, marking the location as a reference point. Though small, the town began attracting important figures of the West, such as hunters and guides who assisted expeditions, as well as being a route used by sheriffs and outlaw gangs on the run. In this 1900 scene in Belle Fourche, South Dakota, cowboys rest around a wagon used as a mobile kitchen during their travels. These wagons, called chuck wagons, were invented just a few decades earlier and quickly became essential for camp life on long cattle drives. The cowboys traveled in groups facing storms, wild animal attacks, and rough terrains, often spending months on the road. At the Egan Saloon in Burns, Oregon, in 1882, men gather around a table playing poker. Saloons like this were hubs for leisure and business, but poker, with stakes that could include money, land, or even horses, brought tension. Fights were common, and in some cases firearms were used to settle disputes. Despite the risks, many saw the games as a chance to change their fortunes, betting everything in hopes of a big win. In this 1911 photo, a Yakima warrior is mounted on his horse holding a spear. During the Wild West, the Yakima faced the arrival of settlers and the loss of their lands. The horse, introduced by Europeans, had become a vital part of indigenous life, aiding in hunting and defense. At that time, tense encounters between natives and settlers were common, especially in areas where westward expansion progressed unchecked. Navajo riders crossed the desert in Canyon de Chelly, Arizona, in one of the most famous photos of the Wild West. The Canyon de Chelly, besides being a sacred place, served as a refuge for centuries, including during the Long Walk, when the Navajo were forced to leave their lands. Its natural formations protected communities and cultures, making it a symbol of survival and resistance. In the summer of 1877, Main Street in Deadwood, South Dakota, is bustling with wagons, workers, and merchants. Wooden shops, saloons, and banks line the street, catering to the growing population drawn by the gold rush. Deadwood thrived as a hub for miners and businesses, but was also marked by conflicts and incidents like the murder of Wild Bill Hickok that same year. In this photo, taken in 1890, Texas Rangers John Woodard "Wood" Saunders, Left, and J. Walter Durbin are seen, known for their roles in dangerous missions, including protecting trade routes and recovering stolen cattle. At the time, Rangers also helped control conflicts between farmers and shepherds, as well as combating gangs operating along the Mexican border. In this photo, Buffalo Bill poses alongside a group of Native Americans who participated in his traveling show, which began in 1883. With tents in the background, the show featured performances that mixed indigenous culture, sharpshooting acts, and reenactments of Wild West scenes. Among the participants were notable indigenous leaders who represented their traditions, as well as famous figures like Annie Oakley. At the end of the trail, cowboys often bathed in rivers to rid themselves of the dust and sweat accumulated during 3 months of cattle driving. After crossing vast distances under tough conditions, This moment marked the beginning of celebrations. Clean and refreshed, they headed to the nearest town, where they enjoyed saloons, parties, and a break before returning to the hard work of the prairies. After the 1882 fire, the OK Corral in Tombstone, Arizona, was reduced to ashes. Famous for being the scene of the 1881 gunfight between the Earp brothers, Doc Holliday, and the Clanton-McLaury group, the site had been a key location for cowboys and merchants. The fire was caused by an accident in one of the nearby wooden structures, a common occurrence in an era when fire spread easily due to the close proximity of wooden buildings. This 1890 meeting shows Indigenous leaders and white representatives. Gatherings like these typically involved treaty negotiations or disputes over land during a period of intense American expansion. Indigenous leaders, dressed in ceremonial attire and armed with traditional weapons, symbolized resistance to the changes and challenges imposed by the loss of their lands. A family of homesteaders poses in front of their sod house in Nebraska in 1888. Homesteaders were settlers who received land from the government through the 1862 Homestead Act and needed to farm it for 5 years to claim ownership. Sod houses built with blocks of earth were common in the Great Plains where wood was scarce. These families endured harsh winters, pests, and isolation to make the land productive. Homesteaders with covered wagons crossed the American West around 1890, seeking the free land promised by the government. To save space, furniture was disassembled, and tools shared space with seeds and provisions in the wagons. Settlers often traveled in groups for greater security against attacks and to help each other during difficult crossings, such as rivers and steep canyons. Two women converse on Cutler Street in Helena, Montana, around 1885. Originally a mining camp following a gold discovery in 1864, Helena became one of the richest cities in the United States thanks to mining. By this time, the city already had brick and wood buildings that replaced the temporary structures from its earlier days. In this 1907 photo, cowboys gather in a saloon in the old town of Tascosa in Oldham County. The cowboys wear leather-reinforced pants known as chaps. These pieces were indispensable for work, protecting their legs from branches, bushes, and even contact with cattle during long journeys. The style varied, but their practical function was crucial for those who spent their days in the saddle. On December 23, 1880, Sheriff Pat Garrett and his posse surrounded Billy the Kid and the Regulators in this stone cabin in Stinking Springs, New Mexico. The standoff began with a gunfight that resulted in the death of Charlie Beaudry, one of Billy's companions. After the siege, Garrett captured Billy the Kid, Dave Rudabaugh, Tom Pickett, and Billy Wilson. The trail through the Sierra Nevada was one of the most challenging parts for those crossing the West. While the plains of the Midwest presented obstacles like rivers and outlaws, the mountains brought heightened danger. Rock slides were a constant threat, especially on narrow trails. Wealthier travelers hired armed guards for protection, but even this could not guarantee safety from natural hazards. It was a journey that demanded courage and endurance. A family lives in their covered wagon while traveling through Loup Valley, Nebraska in 1886. These wagons served as both transportation and shelter for travelers. Around 500,000 families embarked on similar journeys, carrying their belongings, tools, and food in search of a new start. Navigating rough terrain was a significant challenge, but it also represented the opportunity for a fresh beginning on the frontier. Wagons pulled by 20 mules crossed the desert of the Great Basin, transporting borax to the nearest railroads. Known as white gold, borax was widely used in the production of soap, glass, and ceramics, making it a valuable resource at the time. In the 1870s, these convoys faced extreme heat and arid terrains, and the mules, famous for their resilience, ensured the success of these long and challenging journeys. The saloons and infamous establishments in Hazen, Nevada in 1905 served as gathering spots for workers and travelers. Places like the Shamrock Saloon offered drinks and gambling, but were also scenes of frequent fights and disturbances. Located near a railroad line, the town buzzed with activity as people sought entertainment and rest after long days of hard labor. These saloons were integral to Hazen's bustling daily life. Men work on laying railroad tracks in Arizona in 1898, connecting the border to the rest of the country. These railroads were crucial for the West's development, bringing supplies, settlers, and new economic opportunities. Many workers were immigrants, particularly Chinese and Irish, who faced dangerous conditions such as wild animal attacks and extreme heat. At the Cosmopolitan Saloon in Telluride, Colorado, around 1910, men gathered to gamble and drink. On the left, a roulette wheel attracts bettors, while at the bar, a bartender serves customers as an officer keeps watch. The decor, including deer heads on the walls, reflects the common style of the era's saloons, which served as places of leisure and gathering for local workers. Chinese workers operate a wooden rail car in the Bloomer Cut, a railroad passage in California, around 1860. The Chinese made up the majority of the labor force in the construction of the first Western railroads. They endured dangerous conditions, including rock explosions and extreme weather, while earning low wages. Despite these hardships, their efforts were essential in connecting the West to the rest of the United States. Robert McGee became known for surviving an attack in 1864 when he was just 13 years old. During a journey with a caravan in Kansas, he was captured by a group of Sioux warriors. After the loss of other group members, McGee sustained severe injuries but survived. His story exemplifies the intense conflicts between settlers and native peoples during that period. At the Short Line Depot in Boise, Idaho, a train prepares to depart in 1900. This depot was crucial for delivering supplies, such as tools and food, and for exporting local products to other regions. The railroad helped Boise grow by bringing new people and opportunities. Refrigerated train cars even allowed perishable goods to be shipped far away, transforming the city's economy. Settlers rest in a field while fleeing the Dakota War of 1862 in Minnesota. The conflict, which lasted 6 weeks, resulted in around 600 deaths among settlers and soldiers, with more than 150 Dakota also killed. The war began due to delays in treaty payments and starvation among the Dakota, who were confined to increasingly smaller lands. Many settlers abandoned their homes, forming caravans like this one in search of safety. 2 men repair a damaged boat in the Yukon Territory around 1897. The vessel, loaded with essential supplies, was used for the grueling journeys during the Klondike Gold Rush when thousands sought access to the mines. Leaks like this were common and delayed trips, forcing travelers to improvise repairs with materials found along the frozen riverbanks. A wooden railroad bridge crosses the Kansas River in 1867, linking remote areas and driving westward expansion. These bridges were quickly built, but required frequent repairs due to flooding and heavy use. Locomotives crossing them could carry up to 20 tons, revolutionizing commerce by transporting cattle and goods in days, a task that once took weeks by wagon. In this 1905 photo in Texas, 2 common methods of transporting water in the southwestern United States are shown. A horse pulls a barrel directly on the ground, while a cart, drawn by donkeys, carries larger barrels. These methods were used to fetch water from wells or streams and deliver it to homes and farms. In dry regions like the Southwest, water was so valuable that any practical way of transporting it made a significant difference. An artesian well gushes water in Kern County, California, around 1880, transforming arid land into fertile farmland. Families and farmers relied on sources like these for irrigation and survival in dry regions. Artesian wells were particularly valuable in the West as they required no pumps to bring water to the surface. Miners used water jets for hydraulic mining in Rockerville, South Dakota in 1889. This method used water pressure to break up soil and expose minerals like gold. It was efficient but caused significant environmental damage. With the discovery of gold, techniques like this spread. speeding up mining while leaving scars on the land often abandoned after resources were depleted. This wanted poster offers a $500 reward for Orrin Porter Rockwell, accused of attempting to assassinate Missouri Governor Lilburn Boggs. Known as the Destroying Angel, Rockwell served as a bodyguard to Mormon leaders and was a feared figure in the Wild West. Famous for his loyalty and ruthlessness, he garnered both admirers and enemies throughout his life. Two miners weighed gold in a cabin near Nome, Alaska, around 1900. Nome was a central hub during Alaska's gold rush, where even beach sand was mined due to its high gold content. Scales and pans were essential tools for measuring the success of arduous labor. Despite harsh conditions, the lure of wealth drew thousands to the region. Looking at Deadwood, South Dakota in 1877, we see a rapidly growing town with streets lined with wooden buildings typical of the era. 2 years later, in 1879, a major fire would devastate much of these structures due to the combination of flammable materials and the lack of fire prevention measures. Despite the destruction, the town rebuilt itself, remaining one of the most vibrant centers during the gold rush. In this 1890 photo, a stagecoach crosses a wooden bridge in Silverton, Colorado. Bridges like these connected towns in mountainous regions. Stagecoaches carried people, goods, and news, facing difficult and dangerous paths. These crossings were risky but essential for those living in isolated areas. Seth Kinman, a hunter and craftsman, is seated in a chair he made himself using animal horns from his hunts. In 1865, in California, he created this chair as a gift for President Andrew Johnson. Kinman was known for hunting hundreds of elk and turning his finds from nature into unique furniture. His hunting stories and creations made him a notable figure among the pioneers of the era. Joe Fowler became infamous as one of the Wild West's most notorious killers, with rumors claiming he had killed between 30 and 40 people during his life. Acting as a deputy sheriff, he used his position to fulfill orders from corrupt politicians, often eliminating opponents. Fowler was feared for his coldness and skill, proving as dangerous as the criminals he was supposed to fight. His reputation as an enforcer made him a controversial figure, marked by fear and power. In Castledale, Utah, in the early 1900s, a group of men gathers in a saloon to drink beer, with a horse standing beside them. At the time, in rural areas, it wasn't unusual for horses to accompany their owners inside saloons. This was the atmosphere of these gatherings, a mix of fun and improvisation where everything happened in a simple and casual manner. In the Gem Theater Bar in Deadwood, South Dakota during the 1880s, Al Swearingen, third from the right, stands as the owner of the establishment. The Gem wasn't just a bar, but also a center of entertainment offering shows and other services. Amid the gold rush, the Gem became one of the most recognized places, attracting miners and adventurers looking for fun. Artists from Pawnee Bill's Wild West show are seated in a semicircle around 1908. Known for its grand performances, the show featured skilled riders, ropers, and reenactments of historical battles. Pawnee Bill, a rival of Buffalo Bill, toured his spectacle through various towns, captivating audiences with a blend of action, indigenous culture, and Western skill. At Sawtell Ranch in Fremont County, Idaho, walls are lined with weapons such as rifles and pistols, essential for hunting and defense. Repeating rifles were prized for their accuracy and efficiency in hunting large game and protecting against intruders. Pistols, lightweight and practical, were indispensable in situations requiring quick action, a necessity in the isolated frontier life. 3 miners gather in Rockerville, South Dakota in 1889, washing and panning for gold. Using simple methods like pans and wooden sluices, they relied on running water to separate gold from gravel. This labor-intensive and uncertain work attracted many to the region, each hoping for a discovery that would change their lives. In a historic photo, Wild Bill Hickok, Texas Jack Omohundro, and Buffalo Bill Cody appear together, Three legendary figures of the Wild West. Hickok, known as a gunslinger and lawman, gained fame for his skill with firearms. Texas Jack, an explorer and hunter, was celebrated for his tracking abilities. Buffalo Bill, a former military scout, became a cultural icon by creating the traveling show Buffalo Bill's Wild West. On a farm in Fort Worth, Texas, 7 astronomers prepare for the total solar eclipse of July 29, 1878. Equipped with telescopes, they were ready to document the rare event, a unique opportunity to study the sun. Eclipses generated significant scientific and public interest, with newspapers encouraging people to witness them. Thomas Edison was present, testing his tasimeter to measure solar radiation. The Roding family poses in front of their sod house in 1886 with an unusual sight, a cow resting on the roof. These homes, built from blocks of earth, were common on the Great Plains due to the scarcity of wood. The grass roof provided insulation against heat and cold and doubled as elevated pasture for livestock, making efficient use of limited space. At a camp near the Humboldt River Canyon in Nevada, 1868, railroad workers lived in tents and wagons while laying tracks. Known as end-of-the-track camps, these places had makeshift markets and saloons bustling with activity. Despite harsh weather and the risk of attacks, these camps were crucial for the railway's westward expansion. On the banks of the Columbia River, around 1922, teepees are set up by indigenous peoples who relied on fishing and hunting for survival. During the Wild West era, these areas became conflict zones with settlers, especially over resources like the river's salmon. Portable dwellings allowed natives to follow natural cycles despite the disruptions caused by westward expansion. In 1866, in front of the Wells, Fargo and Company office in Virginia City, Nevada, a stagecoach awaits departure. These stagecoaches carried passengers and gold and were heavily guarded against bandit attacks. Wells Fargo, in addition to transportation, offered banking and security services, making it vital in mining regions like Virginia City, where the Comstock lode produced millions in silver. The Coalinga House in California, 1892, shows men gathered on the porch and ground floor of the main building, which served as a hotel. Next door were a meat market and butcher. These combined services provided lodging, commerce, and community interaction, meeting the needs of a growing settlement and the travelers passing through. Jesse James, still young, is depicted in this photo, armed and dressed simply. Born in 1847 in Missouri, he began his criminal career as a guerrilla fighter during the Civil War. After the war, he led the James Younger Gang, notorious for robbing banks and trains. In 1882, Jesse was killed by Robert Ford, a member of his own gang, yet his story made him one of the most recognized figures of the Wild West. Members of the Dalton Gang, a famous group of outlaws from the American Old West. This photograph was taken in 1892, the same year the gang attempted a daring double bank robbery in Coffeyville, Kansas. The event occurred on October 5, 1892, and ended in a deadly shootout with the townspeople. The Dalton Gang was known for robbing trains and banks, often being compared to Jesse James. William F. Cody, known as Buffalo Bill, around 1871. He is shown holding a rifle next to his hunting trophies, which likely include buffalo hides. Buffalo Bill earned his nickname by supplying meat to workers on the Kansas Pacific Railroad, reportedly killing over 4,000 buffalo in 18 months. On April 19, 1928, Charles Berger, a famous bootlegger and gang leader, was hanged in Benton, Illinois. Berger gained notoriety during Prohibition for his gambling operations and illegal alcohol sales. He was involved in violent conflicts, particularly with the Ku Klux Klan and the rival Shelton Gang, which brought chaos to Williamson and Franklin counties in southern Illinois. His execution marked the end of his criminal reign and was the last public execution in Illinois.